Let's go now to Congressman Bobby Scott, Democrat, 3rd District, Virginia. Bobby Scott, Congressman, good to have you with us.
Come on, John.
Okay, I've got Dr. Scher with us, Colonel Mike, both from the CIA. Former. But Congressman Scott, the Charlottesville thing is not going away. I mean, we just had calls on it today, and a lot of people questioning, Congressman, why there was a stand-down order, why these groups weren't separated. There's a conspiracy theory going out there that they were ordered to stand down by the governor or somebody so that there could be violence, so that it could blow up in the press. I, for one, as you know, don't buy into that. I just think mistakes that got made. What happened there, and how do you think this kind of a thing should be handled in the future?
The governor has ordered a thorough review, and I think it'd be helpful to wait until that review takes place. A lot went wrong. The night before, the city manager had actually moved the demonstration to a place where crowd control could be better accomplished, and a federal judge said, no, since it's a protest involving the statute, it ought to be where the statute is. And so the night before, they had to totally regroup. I don't know whether... it's just hard to see. Let's wait till the review so you have an objective study to see, and then we can find out what happens. I don't think anybody thinks that the law enforcement response was adequate. So let's see where the changes need to be made.
Congressman Scott, this is Colonel Mike. Why did the federal judge have to come in and make the move? What was that all about?
Well, it was free speech. I disagree with the assessment. I think the city manager made the case that the crowd control could not be accomplished in the location where it ended up, and the city manager was right. But it is what it is. I believe in free speech. The judge made his ruling, and let's see what let's wait for the review. But like I said, I disagree with the decision. But he made the decision, and you got to go along with the federal order.
What about this concept out there that I keep hearing people say that Terry McAuliffe issued some kind of a secret stand-down order? Does that even? I
don't know anything about that. And that
he doesn't even have the authority to do that.
That would be part of the review. Let's wait for the review.
Let's wait for the review.
He ordered a review, I think, a day or two after the incident. So let's wait for an objective review. I mean, I've heard, you go on the internet, you'll find all kinds of stuff that that could or could not have happened.
So let's go to Afghanistan.
But I think you have to also notice. I mean, although there was street fighting, the death that occurred, I'm not sure there's much preparation that could have prepared for that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Somebody driving into a crowd with a motor vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
The only way that could have been avoided, Congressman Scott, was if they had enough barricades. There should have been no cars near that because you had gasoline on one side and matches on the other.
If you really look at the kind of barricade, unless it's a construction metal, most of the barricades would be for crowd control, not for defense.
But I'm saying
a guy driving into a crowd, and I'm not sure what kind of.
Cars shouldn't have been that close.
Let's just wait and see. Because,
we'll wait.
And all those questions ought to be dealt with. But the idea that somebody's going to drive directly into a crowd, I'm not sure how you could have defended. There'd be crowds all over the place within the barricaded area, outside of the barricaded area. It's hard to see how you could have predicted that kind of thing and defended against it.
It's pretty commonplace in the world these days, unfortunately, Congressman.
It certainly is.
So I mean, how do you protect the crowd from any crowd? I mean, some of the crowd would have to have been outside of any barricaded area when they are leaving the area. You'll have crowds. These cars go up on the sidewalk. It's just hard to imagine that anybody could have predicted that or prepared for that anywhere in the Charlottesville area.
Well, I just hope it crossed someone's mind. That's all.
All right, let's get on.
Let's see. And obviously, since it happened, it ought to be part of the review. How can you protect people who may be walking down the sidewalk from somebody speeding down the street and veering off into the sidewalk? In this case, the crowd was within the street, so I mean that's a different matter. But there's some things that are just going to be hard to defend, and let's see what the review says, and then after the review comes out, then we can pick it apart and see if the review is adequate and see if we need more review.
All right, I want to move on if I can. We're with Congressman Bobby Scott, Democrat, 3rd District, Virginia. Congressman Scott, you and I have been kindred souls for a long time on getting out of these Middle Eastern wars, especially Afghanistan. We've been there for 17 years. We have nothing to show for it as far as anybody can see. The president campaigned for a 2-year period on getting out of these Middle Eastern wars, certainly not on re-upping commitments to Afghanistan, although many people thought his speech on Monday to re-engage there was very presidential, and the neocons were all excited over it. And Lindsey Graham was saying that, he's turned the corner. He's now the best thing since sliced bread. There's no AUMF. We don't know what the level of troop numbers are. This is open-ended. Basically, he set us up where we could be there in perpetuity. He didn't define victory. I don't know what winning is other than body bags. So it's kind of like the General Westmoreland Vietnam strategy. Kill as many Viet Cong as you can, break their will. That didn't work in Vietnam. What's your take on this whole thing?
Well, I think I agree with you with one addition. It was kind of short on details, and it was hard to ascertain how his policy will be any different than how it's been since he took office, or in fact any different from the way it's been going on for the last 16 years. You know, he said we're gonna be stronger. We're gonna base it on this, that, and the other. But the total lack of details did not give any indication how his strategy would result in any difference in how it's gone on for 16 years. There's no as you indicated, there's no indication of any end point. How are you going to ever bring this thing to an end? What he said was we're going to continue fighting and so there you are.
So
they came out a couple of the next day or so and gave a number on troops. I think it was 3,900 additional troops,
4,
which isn't enough to change the strategy. And so it's business as usual. And you wonder how somebody could have campaigned the way he campaigned and end up. Maybe there are things that you and I don't know about, but it just didn't seem to me to. I mean, it was a major speech. It did not indicate any change in strategy.
Well, look, I like the fact that I don't like the decision he made. I like the fact that he did admit that it was a change in his position. And he said, I said one thing in the campaign trail, you get behind the desk and you have different information. But let's get to declaration of war, AUMF. How do you guys, I would have no problem if we got an AUMF debate and the administration went to Congress under the Constitution and in private, classified, outlined their case, and you guys then voted for it. But Congress isn't even involved in this.
But I think it's a dereliction of our congressional responsibility. The AUMF that we're working on is the original one, which cannot possibly be active on whatever we're doing in Afghanistan now. I think one of the most articulate spokesman on this issue is obviously Tim Kaine, and I certainly agree with him on this, that we ought to jettison the first AUMF and debate whether we should still be there.
Right.
ISIS we
Congressman,
didn't even know about ISIS when we started this fight.
There should be no AUMF, sir. You're trying to delegate a congressional power to the president, and you can't do it. There should be no war unless there's a declaration of war. The president has to come before you and ask for a declaration.
The AUMF as the Declaration, and that would be our.
No, I think that's I think that's incorrect, sir.
Whether or not it's inadequate, whether or not it constitutes a declaration or not, you can argue, but we ought to do something. And what we're doing now
I agree.
is just allowing the president
unconstitutional,
to stand back and then kibitz on the side, and that's not. That's
well,
not
that's what the Congress wants, isn't it, sir? For the most part, isn't that what the Congress wants? In the sense that if you give them
there's a political reason, political benefit in it, you have no responsibility.
Exactly right, sir. They give that to the president.
That's wrong. We ought to step up and involve and on behalf of the American people, debate the war and decide whether we should stay there or not. We haven't done it.
Well, yeah, that's correct, sir, but you can do that. You can refuse to fund anything that the president hasn't asked for a declaration of war for. That's your job.
Yeah, but what's happening is Paul Ryan is tabling it. I mean, who is it? Congressman Barbara Lee had gotten that same thing right through appropriations, and before it went to rules, Paul Ryan just stripped it out, so they didn't have to debate it.
We'll have another opportunity to vote on it when the appropriations bill gets voted on.
All right, I got 4 minutes. What are your thoughts on these removing of statues? And let me just start with this in Virginia. Obama was president for 2 terms. You were in the Congress when Nancy Pelosi was the speaker. We never had a debate on removing statues in Virginia, removing them from the Capitol. You guys had complete authority from 2009 to 2011. Nobody talked about removing statues. Now all of a sudden they got to get ripped out of Richmond and Duke University and VMI. Why?
Well, first of all, what statute is in the Capitol is a question for the state. The state decides who they want to honor. Each state gets 2 statutes, and that's up to Virginia and the General Assembly and governor to decide what statutes are honored. But I think one of the things that I hope we don't do is divert all of our attention to Confederate statutes. We got jobs to worry about. Health care is still at risk. Education. We got the budget to worry about. I hope we don't spend all our time talking about Confederate statutes. I mean, we've been promised an infrastructure bill, which will create a lot of jobs. People, tens of millions of people, have their health care at risk. We've got education issues coming up. So I hope we would, we've been speaking all this time, and it's all Confederate statutes. I think people can take their position one way or the other, but I hope that's not the focus of our legislative activity, arguing about which statute's going to be there and which isn't. Nobody's going to get a job whether the statute stays there or goes. We need
but it's your party, sir.
We got a nuclear war possibility with North Korea. Let's not spend all our time arguing about statutes. They're important. I mean, it's just not a high priority in terms of what we do. I've taken a position. Yeah, I think they ought to go. But let's get back to jobs and health care and education, criminal justice reform. We got the budget coming up, all the appropriations, and it's likely that we won't finish that by the end of September. The debt ceiling.
Congressman, did you tell your party that?
The economy, if we don't take care of that. I mean, there are a lot of important
why don't you tell that
before us, and I hope we don't spend all our time talking about these statutes.
Congressman, we agree with you 110%.
Why don't you tell your party that?
Tell that to your
Pelosi and
leader.
Schumer and the rest of them.
Well,
they're the ones. Look at what they're trying to take them off Capitol Hill. They're the ones that put the focus on it.
Well,
it's not anyone else in this country. Some violent white kids.
I agree with removing them. But that ought not be the focus of our legislative activity. We've got.
Would you, sir? Would you take?
I think there are a lot of Democrats. The media focus is on the couple that want to spend all their time doing that. I can't control the media.
No, sir. But would you take?
In this interview, John, you tried to keep it all on Confederate statutes. How about an infrastructure bill? And what are we going to do about
prior to that, Congressman,
people's health care?
Congressman, give us a second. Prior to that, it was 6 months of Russia. So let's get it straight. Your party's been really off the chart. Okay,
well,
it was Russia and then statues.
Would you support taking drug addicts off of postage stamps then?
Well, look,
I'm sorry.
Would you take
like
Jimi Hendrix picture off of a postage stamp, sir?
And stop jeopardizing people's health care. When I had a town hall meeting a couple of days ago,
why don't you vote with the Republicans then?
On health care. I don't think I got a single question on Confederate monuments in the town hall meeting.
I'm with you on this.
Well, why is your party pushing it, sir?
Well, a few individuals have been getting a lot of coverage. I'm not sure that's the party position. I think our party position would be making sure we protect people's health care.
Take down Robert Byrd. Take down Robert Byrd.
Improve education. We're going to be doing criminal justice reform, or at least for juvenile justice. The bill has passed the House and the Senate. It needs to be reconciled. I'll be in the middle of that to make sure that we focus on protecting juveniles in the criminal justice system and reducing crime. And when you reduce crime, you can save money with an intelligent criminal justice policy. That's what I'm going to be doing when we get back.
Congressman, we're out of time, but I want you to run for minority leader, because if you were the minority leader, you'd fix all this stuff, and we could get all this done. We could get tax reform done. We get an infrastructure plan done.
Well,
we get all this done. Why don't you run for minority leader?
Everybody thinks if you do tax reform, your taxes are going to go down. Well, if you have tax reform, unless it's a tax cut, if you have tax reform, some people's taxes are going to go up.
No, but I tell you what,
everybody kind of thinks so. If tax reform is going to be good for me, let's see what the bill looks like.
The plan you're going to be voting on, everybody is going to get a tax cut, and it's going to be designed to expand the economy by 3.5%, and you're going to be so excited for it, you're probably going to vote for it. But you need to run for minority leader, and I will be your biggest backer in America right here, Bobby Scott, for minority leader.
Where the budget is anywhere close to balanced or fiscally responsible. With the tax reform they're talking about, you're playing with funny numbers.
We got to go. Thank you, Congressman.
If you want your doctor, you can keep him. Don't worry.
Always a pleasure to have you on. You need to run for minority leader.